Time was a hallowed piece of ground, a cemetery, is a place called Bachelors Grove, which is southwest of downtown Chicago. Bachelors Grove is legendary, Richard Crowe. Where is it located?
The Bachelors Grove Cemetery is located on 143rd Street, just east of Ridgeland Avenue, in an area that was known as Bachelors Grove because it was settled in the 1840s by bachelors who were immigrants, actually, from Germany.
And the cemetery was used to bury those who passed away?
The cemetery that's out there was a little non-denominational community cemetery, which has not been in use now for new burials since 1965. But there are still graves out there. There's still bodies out there, of course.
Now, this is tied, very closely to Forest Preserve or public property, or is it within it, or how's that set up?
Cemeteries by Illinois state law are independent entities and pay no taxes and exist for forever. It is surrounded by forest preserves, and it is in the heart of forest preserves, including Bachelors Grove Woods and Rubio Woods Forest Preserve out there.
Now, why is this place, Bachelors Grove, so legendary? Why does it, in some people's minds, strike fear, and in others, the immediate desire to run out there and look for unusual things? What has happened there to put it on the map?
Well, the incidents that have been occurring out there go back many years. I've collected stories that go back a good 25 years concerning the little cemetery there. And they include the whole gamut of psychic happenings, including some very classic-type cases, such as a blue ghost light seen out there, and, of course, the famous disappearing house. Now, we can go into detail on these in a minute if you'd like, but I think that the most convincing thing about Bachelors Grove that has come up has been the series of photographs that have been taken out there by individuals using Polaroid SX70 film. And this color film seems to be more sensitive than other films, but on Polaroid film, color film, we can actually pick up greenish-blue mist-like shapes which assume various forms out there at the cemetery when there is nothing visible to the naked eye. So the camera has actually picked up some very unusual apparitions, so to speak, out of the cemetery.
Did you not once tell me of a photographer who was in the Bachelor Grove cemetery and his camera took a picture by itself?
Right. That's how the phenomenon was discovered. Mr. Tony Vasey, who is an Oak Lawn resident on the southwest side, was at Bachelors Grove walking along with his new Polaroid camera at his side. He had just gotten it recently and was carrying it around with him. He was just out at the Grove looking around. And as it hung by his side, the picture went off by itself. The snap went off by itself. He thought it was unusual, didn't think too much of it. The picture came out, and as it developed before his eyes, he noticed that there was a very unusual shape in the center of the picture. It was a bluish-green, mist-like shape. And he thought, that's curious, because there's nothing there visible. And he thought perhaps the film was a bit bad, or the camera had a leak of some sort, light leak, that something had fouled up the film. So he tried shooting more pictures. And he found that in one particular cemetery, later we found that there are other areas around there also, but in this one particular area of the cemetery, if you aim your camera in that direction and shoot, you are reasonably assured of getting something unusual on your film. And this went on, and Mr. Vasey got a hold of me, and I went out there with him. We were out there a good dozen times at various weather conditions, various times of year, various times, sun in various positions, and so on, experimenting with roll after roll of film. And we have a couple hundred good shots right now of some very unusual phenomena occurring out there, not visible to the naked eye, and yet able to be picked up on film.
What is the story of the disappearing light of Bachelors Grove?
The blue light of Bachelors Grove was the first thing that I heard about concerning the place, and that's what really got me interested in it, because ghost lights, of course, are not exactly common, but they're found throughout the United States and other parts of the world, and quite common in folklore. And this light, though, was blue, which is a bit unusual, because most of the ghost lights are white. However, this blue light that has been seen, and it's been seen by a number of people I've talked to, including a Cook County police officer, who will remain unnamed tonight, but he saw it as well. And this light comes out through the trees from the wooded area to the west of the cemetery proper, from an area where a creek flows, comes out over the tombstones. And it will usually hover about 9 or 10 feet in the air, but sometimes comes right down to the ground. Now, people have gone after it and tried to catch it, and this thing does seem to exhibit some sort of intelligence and does elude its pursuers. So it's quite an unusual thing, and it's one of the longest-lasting phenomena of Bachelors Grove.
And the disappearing house, which you've talked about on WIND before, and Halloween is a good time to talk about a disappearing house, Richard.
I must confess the disappearing house really caught me off guard. I certainly did not believe that a house could appear as a ghost and could be seen by people. And for a number of years, I thought, that's just a curious story, but undoubtedly the people telling me this, that they had seen this house, obviously were at a different place and got their locations mixed up, because I had been over every square foot of ground out there at Bachelors Grove, and certainly there was no house out there. Well, finally it dawned on me, though, that these people were all describing the same thing. They were describing a wooden farmhouse of the mid-1800s that had 3 steps, 2 columns, a porch swing, a vine-covered trellis, and a faint light shining in the window. Well, the descriptions are all the same, but the thing was that the locations around Bachelors Grove where they had seen this house had varied, and they included on the left-hand side of the dirt road into the cemetery, as well as on the other side of the creek in 2 locations. One of which I later found was the location of stone foundations of an old house, which dated back to the mid-1800s. Well, as I say, it finally dawned on me that they were all describing the same house, and yet they were not people who were in communication with each other, did not know each other, but they'd all seen the same thing, but moving about. So I knew right away there was something quite unusual about this. And I did come up with one witness then, finally, and he had told me how he was roaming through the brush on February, a year ago, a year and a half ago at this point, and he had been out there looking around, knew there was no house out there, and suddenly through the brush, through the trees, saw the same house I just described, the wooden farmhouse. Now, he knew that this was obviously quite unusual. He started running towards it. To get to it, he had to run around some bushes and bramble, and finally he found himself falling through the air. He had come upon the house, it had disappeared, and he wound up falling into the stone foundation of it. Stone foundation of the ruins of the old house.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, very early on Halloween morning, you now know the story once again, or perhaps for the first time you've ever heard it, of Bachelors Grove Cemetery, a place that's been there for a long time, has been desecrated time.